You're listening to the FNA Show. This is FNA 37, The Dusk and the Doorway, Episode 1 of the Short Stories series. A hand rose from the muck at the base of the two wooden stairs. The porch above was dimly lit by the last strands of light that slid through the skeletal tree limbs in the front yard. The yard itself was barren. No foot, save for the soft paws of the local wolf pack, had tread there in years. Clawing at the dirt and the mud from which it rose, the fingers bent back and forth unnaturally. The elbow was twisted grotesquely, and it was only as a result of the unimaginable angle that the arm was able to reach back toward the small opening from which it had come and dig around its own shoulder. A moan, low and trembling, came from within the old house. A candle in the house, facing the porch, flickered as would a light bulb. Sparks shot out, then darkness. A moan, low and trembling, came from within the old house. A candle in the window facing the porch flickered as would a light bulb. Sparks shot out, then darkness. As the sun set, the electric humming of the cicadas increased. Rising and falling in sonorous waves, they set the tempo of the evening, slow and foreboding, on the verge of urgency. The candle was lit. Red light shone onto the porch. It was brighter than any candle had the right to be. The shoulder, clad in plaid, came into view, and a blue jay looked down at the strange arm busying itself from the decaying rooftop. A shrill cry, almost imperceptible, was cued by something in the stagnant night air. The digging arm increased in intensity, and sweat began to fling like raindrops around its excavation. The cry was coming from within the house. Another candle was lit in a window to the side of the house, and instantly the cry soared almost in tandem with the music of the cicadas in inhuman cadences. They rose and fell interspersed together like two stringed instruments dueling purposefully through the acrid dissonance of a forgotten dream. The shoulder, now fully visible, popped in and out of joint as the arm swung back and forth in its lavish attempt to uncover the rest of its person. It made a shotgun cracking noise just on top of the bone on bone grinding, and as the neck came into view, pale, with one blue vein pulsating, the long fingernails of the hand dug out tiny bits of flesh as the digging continued. The door opened as another candle ignited on the opposite side of the house. The night had drawn its curtain on the small shot of land. Here it darkened more quickly than in other places, and it was almost as if the sudden intensity of night had fueled the ability with which the arm could lash out at the prison of earth. Within the doorway, there was nothing. No light from the candle reached the vacant space just beyond the threshold. The door frame rattled after opening completely, and the door swung back a few inches. Its hinges creaked, the low grumble of a gigantic beast breathing through swollen glands. The arm had uncovered the side of a head, and it was prying the head up by the neck. Bits of earth fell across the hairy face. Beads of sweat slivered behind the ear, and as the head rose, it turned, revealing a snout where the nose and mouth should have been. It was still partially buried, and as the arm strained itself, the snout popped several times like a gigantic knuckle as it was pulled up and out of the earth. It was several feet long and nearly as thick as the wrist of the hand that pulled upon it. The doorway continued to breathe, and the cicadas continued to sing with the gentle cries from within the house. Light footfalls from behind signaled the first of the wolves. Another came out from the tree line and stood well away from the house. They growled softly, and their hair stood upright. They paced. The arm heaved one last time and extended itself as far as it could. The snout popped out of the ground with a gigantic thwop, and the air was filled with a roaring as though from a lion. That the roar seemed not to come from the snout, but rather from the air itself, was peculiar, for the snout trembled as though taking credit for the carnal trumpeting. The snout pulsated and writhed back and forth, trying to escape from the face it was on. The arm kept digging down toward the rest of its body. The candles went out, and with them the cicadas retreated into darkness, and everything was still. All that could be heard was the steady churning of dirt as the arm continued to dig. And then, slowly, the cries from within the house joined in the arm's monotonous journey. The doorway was so dark that it let out a dark light all its own, a pathway marked by the completeness of its vacuum. Several more wolves joined the first two in the small clearing, and they were all moving back and forth erratically. They made no sound save for a low growling between clenched jaws, but were frantic in their dashing back and forth. The arm dug down, and then stopped. It rested itself on a swath of mud it had carved out in the side of the hole it had made near the torso of its body. 4 small babies crawled through the clearing of wolves. They were each one painted a different color from head to toe. One yellow, one red, one blue, and one black. They made not a sound, but crawled in a straight line toward the house. The wolves paid them no mind, but continued to pant and pace in silence. The little ones heaved themselves up the small steps with great effort. The steps were splintered, but they still made no cry when their pudgy hands and feet ran along them, injecting splinters under their skin. The doorway hummed and breathed, and when they had passed through it, it shut behind them soundlessly. The cicadas began again their nocturnal melody.